a number of years ago, I visited Germany with my parents, who had escaped during the late 30s, and my father had already been arrested in the 30s and had to leave Germany earlier, and then was in Switzerland, ended up in Holland, having escaped many situations, and was on the last boat from Holland to the United States. And they would never visit, and one time we had an occasion to go there, and they agreed to go. And we went back to the town from which my father came, where Jews have lived for hundreds of years. In our family, we know, going back to the 1600s. Perhaps descendants of Jews who escaped Spain, and there were synagogues discovered in this region that had Spanish motifs. And we went to visit the cemetery, and my father remembered where it was, and we walked for about 40 minutes outside this little village where he lived on the foothills of the Bavarian Alps, a very bucolic scene. The setting is very beautiful and serene. And we walked together, and it was snowing, and we walked in the snow and finally found the cemetery, and it was untouched. And perhaps because the Nazis didn't know where it was, and when they destroyed the synagogue, which my great-great-grandfather had built in 1862, they did not desecrate the cemetery. And in the front row were some of the graves of my great-grandparents and others. And my great-grandfather's tomb was perfectly legible. And it said that he died at the age of 80, which was then considered full life, as it was described, that he was a man of great integrity and of righteousness. And there was this long description of him. And while most of the other graves were not legible, or some had been reconstructed, this was not reconstructed, yet was perfectly legible. And I kept thinking, why was this one not subject to the same ravages of time that the others were? And I realized that we were only one of the two families that had survivors from this community. That when this was written in 1920, and this gravestone was put there, he didn't need it. His children were there. His grandchildren were already there. They knew who he was. They knew about his life. So what was that inscription preserved for? But for us. That I and my children and our grandchildren and all the others will be able to know who we are, where we came from, what our responsibility is to that grandparent, to all our grandparents. And we didn't know, but it was sending a message that transcended even the Nazis, could not destroy that message. And I walked away realizing the uniqueness of that experience and the importance of the message that I have then to communicate to future generations.